A year out from this conflict, what is the mood like in Gaza? What is the mood amongst the Palestinian people? Do they feel this sense of hope now?
It's very difficult right now in Gaza. I just talked, like I said, I have few friends there, and everyone I know from Gaza has lost family members, neighbors, people they care and love, and so it's very difficult. And most people have lost multiple family members. I just spent some time with a Palestinian doctor who was in Gaza, and the stories I heard, I couldn't stop crying listening to him because it wasn't just the airstrikes, it wasn't just people dying because of bombing. It was things he was saying that are very preventable. People dying because of lack of antibiotics in hospitals, because of the lack of anesthesia, because of lack of medicine for diabetes, normal preventable diseases. And it's like thousands of people are dying that we're not even talking about because they're not dying directly from airstrikes. So it's very hard. But in the same time, I think everyone almost I know that I talk to from Gaza says their dream is for this to stop. They just want this to stop. There is a lot of despair. There is a lot of feelings. What can I do? Does the world care about our lives? Where are the people who talk about the human rights and coexistence and so on? So there is that despair among people in Gaza. And sometimes that despair can translate into, well, if there's no hope, so I guess this is an everlasting war. What we need to do is to create a reality that everyone, Israelis, Palestinians, people in Gaza, can see that a different path is possible. And what we're trying to do is to model that, to show that our work together is an example of how the future for both Israelis and Palestinians can be.
That sounds like a beautiful future, but what do you think realistically right now that looks like? Does it look, do people think that a ceasefire could be imminent? How do they feel about Hamas a year later? Because when you and I spoke after October 7th, you said that this vacuum, this loss of hope amongst the Palestinian people is what made Hamas so powerful in the first place. So a year out, how
Right.
do people feel about them now?
Yeah, I don't think there is a replacement of that vacuum yet. I think people have hopelessness. I would say the reason I don't think a military action could work against Hamas, whatever you kill of Hamas members, there's a ground right now to recruit many more. We are talking about 15 to 20,000 orphans. Who's going to take care of them? These are prime kids to be recruited by organizations like Hamas or whatever replaces Hamas of Hamas was to be toppled. There are thousands and thousands of people who lost their kids, who lost their wives, who lost their mothers, fathers. These are the people who Hamas will be able to go to and say, come and join us. This is what Israel did to you. So that despair still exists there. But Hamas has never been very, very popular in Gaza in the last even 20 years, 15 years. The last election we had was almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago in Gaza. So it has maintained power not through election, it's through controlling, through military power. If you objected to Hamas, still today, if you object to Hamas, you could risk your life in Gaza. So when people tell me, oh, we got polls and we know how many people in Gaza, I don't know how do you take a poll that can be really scientific in the midst of a war. If an airstrike just hit my neighborhood, doesn't matter what my views of Hamas is, I'm going to be angry at the people who fired that airstrike. I'm going to be angry at Israel, and I might say things not necessarily what I feel. So I don't really trust those polls in the middle of emotional despair. I think the only way that we can stop people from joining Hamas or from being radicalized is by creating an alternative hope, an alternative process, something that people can believe in. And right now in Gaza, they don't have that alternative. They don't see what else to believe in because I can't even, I mean, it's extremely hard to even reach people in Gaza. For me to talk to someone in Gaza is next to impossible. There is no power. So to get to a phone call, the phone lines, to have enough money for them to maintain a phone line active. There are so many challenges just to have a conversation. So it's definitely not great, and I would say it's not much different in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem. What my family tell me is they continuously live in fear. I talk to my nephews, I talk to my nieces in Jerusalem, and they are terrified. They're terrified every time they leave their home. My brother tells me every time his son goes to school, he's afraid, what if? And that's the conditions that are perfect to radicalize people. So it might look, oh, we strong, we powerful for Israel, but in reality, what it's doing is breeding a lot more hate and anger, and eventually it could lead to actions.